Hi everybody, I'm Professor Charlie Collins. Welcome to your mini lecture on social networks. So today we're going to be talking about centrality and power, particularly within micro-level networks or small networks. These same principles apply to larger networks as well, but we're sort of focusing on smaller networks during this lecture. So today we're going to be learning about power and social networks. And power is typically defined within social networks by using this idea of centrality. And there are three types of centrality: degree, closeness, and betweenness. And we'll be talking about each one of them in detail. But first, let's get our running example going here.
Welcome to the Create Space Distribution Channels video. We understand that as an author, you want to make your book available to as many readers as possible through effective distribution. In this video, we'll tell you about CreateSpace's various distribution channels and what they can mean for you. CreateSpace has both free and low-cost distribution options: Amazon.com, Amazon Europe, the CreateSpace eStore, and expanded distribution. You can enable as few or as many channels for your books as you'd like. Let's start by looking at CreateSpace's free standard distribution choices. The Amazon.com distribution channel gives your book its own detail page, complete with Amazon's Look Inside feature. Millions of potential customers will be able to order your title using one-click ordering, free Super Saver shipping, one-day shipping, and Amazon Prime on eligible orders. Through Amazon.com, your customers can order your book and receive it in their hands within 24 hours. Also, if you create a Kindle version of your title, both your paperback and ebook versions will appear on your Amazon detail page, giving readers the chance to buy your book in whichever format they prefer. In addition to Amazon.com, you can also reach international customers for free with CreateSpace's Amazon Europe distribution channel. This makes your title available on all of Amazon's European websites, including Amazon.co.uk, Amazon.de, Amazon.fr, Amazon.it, and Amazon.es. By enabling these channels, your book will be listed for your European readers as in stock and available for expedited shipping, including Amazon Prime where available. For these channels, members with bank accounts in these countries may have the option to receive royalty payments by direct deposit in US dollars, British pounds, or euros. The CreateSpace eStore is another free distribution channel available. The eStore is a fully customizable web page for your book where customers can place.
So I don't think we need to go through the whole video. The point here is that this CreateSpace, right? It's a distribution channel. So the goal is for this company is to connect authors to places in which they can sell their books, right? They can sell their manuscripts, and so the idea here is that CreateSpace has a particular level of power by doing this, and they have power not because of what they do per se, but they have power because of where they sit in a network. So what we'll do is we'll use this example as a running example throughout the lecture to talk about how power may occur in this distribution network. And so just a note, right? This is not actually CreateSpace's distribution network. This is a fictional distribution network. So the idea here, one of the major questions we can answer or ask with social networks is, in what ways could CreateSpace hold power over other actors in a distribution network, right? And we'll use this idea of centrality to try to answer this question. So first, let's start by defining power in a network. And so Neil first came up with this idea of looking at power relationally, right? And so they came up with this definition of power derives from occupying an advantageous position within a pattern of relationships through which resources are exchanged. And then Hanneman and Riddle also talk about power as individuals have power because they can dominate others, and ego's power alters dependence. So there are several factors here that highlight what power is in a social network. First, we have a pattern of relationships being occupied by an advantageous position, as Neil and Neil talk about, right? So power occurs through your patterns of relationships. And one of the main components here that we need to discuss is that this advantageous position is really important. And it has to do with inequality in a social network. So if I am in an advantageous position, but everybody else is in an advantageous position, I'm not at an advantageous position, right? Because everybody else is in that same position. So if the social network is equivalent or equal, then there are no advantageous positions, even if people are doing things like bridging connections or being a broker between two nodes in a network, right? And we'll see what I mean in a minute. The exchange of resources. Resources, in order for a network to be a network, resources of some sort have to be exchanged, right? And so, so whatever that resource may be, something has to be exchanged between actors in the network, and actors in that network need and want that resource. And then finally, dependence. If one node is dependent on another node for a resource or to get in touch with another node, that creates power, right? Because somebody has to go through somebody else to get something they want, or somebody has to be dependent on somebody in order to get something they want. So let's look at two sort of fictitious networks. The first is called a star network. And this is a structurally inequivalent network. And the reason that is because one actor in this network sits in the middle, whereas everybody else sits on the outside. So in essence, not all connections are equal in this network, right? As you can see, it's not an equivalent network where one person or one actor, maybe it's create space, has more power or sits in a particularly advantageous position. The star network, or excuse me, the circle network, on the other hand, is structurally equivalent. Every single actor in this network is connected to two other actors. So this network is what we would call structurally equivalent, right? Everybody's structurally the same within this network. So let's talk about first the idea of degree centrality. Now, degree centrality, the idea of degree centrality is that power occurs when actors have more opportunities to exchange resources, and that's, again, relative to other actors. And so what that means is actors have more opportunities to exchange resources, meaning they're connected to more people compared to everybody else, right? And again, we have to think about inequality in this case. So in the star network, if actor A has 4 connections, we call this 4 degrees, whereas all other actors only have 1 connection. So if actor A, or maybe it's create space in this case, wants to get access to some resources, they have 4 different places to go in order to get access to those resources. However, every other actor necessarily needs to go to A because they only have a connection with A. The circle network, on the other hand, every single actor has a degree of 2. So every single actor can only go to 2 places. And that's structurally equivalent, right? Because every single person only has 2 connections, or every single actor only has 2 connections. So in this case, the star network, actor A has a lot of power because that person or that node has a lot more connections compared to everybody else. Now again, let's talk about that inequality here. If in the star network, actor A had 4 degrees or 4 different connections, but everybody else had, say, 6 or 7 connections, that means that A would have less power than everybody else, even though at the end of the day it's the same number of connections that A had in the star network. So again, that's what I mean by equality and equivalence. Everything is relative in these social networks. So let's use our create space example and sort of take a look at this. So I ran just a fictitious social network here to look at the connections that various actors have. So if we look at create space has a degree of 9. So CreateSpace has 9 different places to go to in order to do something like, say, sell books, right? So if Amazon.it doesn't want to buy CreateSpace's books, CreateSpace can go to Amazon France or Amazon Europe or Amazon.com, other academic institutions, right? So by having these connections with all of these different actors in a network, CreateSpace has more power because they can go to different places, right? Whereas a place like, let's say, Amazon.com, and obviously we know this isn't true because Amazon.com has a lot more networks than this, but if Amazon.com, say, wants to purchase books, they really only have 2 places to go, CreateSpace and Amazon Europe, right? So that gives CreateSpace a particular level of power in this network because it has more opportunities to sell books compared to something like Amazon where it only has a couple of places to go. Now let's take a look at closeness centrality. So for closeness centrality, the idea here is that power occurs when actors are closer to one another, right? So what that means is actor A can get to somebody else faster maybe than actor B or actor C, right? So power occurs when actors are closer to others, and this is defined by this idea called geodesic distance, and this is the number of paths taken to reach another actor. So the number of paths in order to reach somebody else is the source of power. So for the star network, if we take a look at this, actor A has a geodesic distance of 1. So it can get to every other actor within the network within one connection, right? It's A is connected directly to everybody else. However, all others have a geodesic distance of 2 to everybody else except for actor A, right? They have a direct connection with actor A, but they have 2 connections to get to everybody else. So it will take them longer to get to other people in this network or other actors in this network. The circle network, geodesic distances vary across different actors. So for example, actor A, in order to get to actor E, has a distance of 2. But the thing again here is that it's equivalent for everybody, right? Everybody has the same geodesic distance to every other actor, right? And so because it's equivalent, it gives nobody a particular advantage in this social network. So let's take a look again at our fictional example. Now, as you can see, CreateSpace is connected directly to most actors in the system. So CreateSpace has a geodesic distance of 1 to most actors in the system. Amazon ES, Amazon Europe, book publishers, writers, so on and so forth. It has a distance of 2 to Ingram, however, and that's it. But everybody else, it has a distance of 1. If we take another node, let's say Ingram here, Ingram has a distance of 2 to Amazon.com, or 3 actually to Amazon.it, and it also has 3 to Amazon.com. So it's further away to other actors in this network compared to CreateSpace, right? And so if CreateSpace needs to get something from another actor or needs to sell something to an actor, it can get to that actor much faster than Ingram can, for example. And in that idea is where power lies, right? Because you can get there faster means that you can get the materials or whatever you need quicker. Now let's finally talk about betweenness centrality. This is our last idea of centrality. And this is very similar to what you've probably heard before of brokerage, right? Network brokerage or structural holes. Betweenness centrality argues that power occurs when actors lie between actors, between other actors, right? Actors who have to go through another actor in order to get something are at a disadvantage. And the actor that sits between those 2 actors are at an advantage because they can potentially glean something by connecting 2 people. So they're sort of gatekeepers in a lot of ways because they can you know, they have the power to either allow people through to the other side or to not, right? And so in the star network, if we take a look at the relationships here, C has to go through A in order to get to any other actor in this network, actor E, B, or D, right? And so in this case, A has a lot of power because A can either approve that connection or not approve that connection. And in addition, when we're talking about businesses, right, businesses, there's a lot of businesses who do this a lot, who are sort of like referral businesses. And they make a lot of money by referring various people to each other, right? So something like, if anybody's heard of Angie'sList.com, Angie's List sort of sits in the middle between contractors and clients or customers, right? And Angie's List makes money off of referring clients to customers and vice versa. The circle network, all actors sit between other actors, but again, because there's no structural advantage, there's no structural inequality in this network, it doesn't matter. Nobody has any more power over the other, right? So because it's equal, there's no relational power in this case. So let's take a look at create space, right? So create space in this network is at a particular advantage when we're talking about betweenness centrality. So let's say Amazon.com wants to sell books, which it does, and book publishers and writers want to sell their books to Amazon.com because they know if they can get to Amazon.com, then they will have a greater chance of reaching a wider audience, right? So Amazon.com needs books, but book publishers and writers have books and they want to sell them to Amazon.com. However, Create Space sits right in the middle of this relationship, right? So because Create Space sits right in the middle of the relationship, what they can do is they can say, all right, Amazon.com, I'm connected to all of these book publishers. If you want books, you're going to have to give me a cut of the profits. You're going to have to give me 5%, right? So Create Space can create power in that situation because it can refer book publishers to Amazon.com in order for Amazon to get those books. At the same time, it can also go back to book publishers and say, look, I can refer you to Amazon.com or I can connect you guys, but you're going to have to give me a cut of what you sell them, right? So Create Space is in this unique position where it can glean off of, it can sort of take a profit from both ends of the spectrum here, simply by sitting in that space, right? If Amazon.com were to build direct connections with book publishers, it would have no more need for Create Space, right? It would simply override Create Space and not have to pay Create Space for those services. All right, so at the end of this mini lecture, you should understand power in social networks at a baseline, and understand how centrality, and particularly degree centrality, closeness centrality, and betweenness centrality have power, and the different power that they can create because of the social network or because of that idea. Thank you for watching.